Immemorial. Snob. Snob when it's choking on city.
All right. Welcome to Daniel Week at the Whiskey Vault, courtesy of the Mooch.
Yeah. I'm a benevolent god.
Wait, what? You don't have your rub. You can't do that.
The Ember!
No, didn't count. Is it sort of like your infinity stone?
It's my Ember of Moochismo. You got the Longmorn.
Okay, so here's the thing. My first moment when I realized there was more to whiskey
For your next
was
trip.
when my dad said, try this Longmorn 16.
Yeah.
And this is the old one.
How did he get his hands on it?
I don't even remember how he got the first one, actually. I don't know that I've ever asked him that question.
Mooched it. Dun, dun, dun.
But the Longmorn 16 original is in this brown box.
Mm-hmm.
And it is this beautiful Speyside butterscotch with a little bit more oil than you would normally get from a Speyside.
Sure.
So it's richer.
Yeah.
And then it has this black pepper nut that just spikes out at about 3/4 of the way through
Yeah.
and makes it really remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was known, in the industry, it's known as like a distiller's whiskey.
Sure.
Like, this is the whiskey that people who know a lot about whiskey in Scotland,
Yeah.
they always keep this as like the gold standard of something they keep, but most other humans don't know
That's
about
funny. In any industry, there's always like the insider's favorite.
Yeah.
Like, there's comedian. There's actors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the whiskey maker's whiskey.
Yeah.
Because of that subtlety and nuance. Now, for forever, it has been a well-kept secret. And it's still introduced that way. I mean, we went to a tasting of the Single Malt Whiskey Society in Austin, and they introduced a special, because they don't tell you what's in theirs on the bottle.
Yeah.
It's just casks that are named and bottles that are named, whatever it tastes like.
Yep.
And so he said, this whiskey is an 18-year-old, and it's a whiskey. This distillery was known as a whiskey drinker's distillery. I took one sip and went, yeah, this is Longmorn. And I turned to the guy and said, this is Longmorn, right? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, you gave it away with the distiller's whiskey, right? So recently they have gotten better at marketing and better at publicity. And they ramped up production.
Oh, good.
And they changed their recipe slightly. This is the new one.
Okay.
Now, my guess...
To get production up to speed.
It's still 16, right?
Okay.
But remember, 16 just means the youngest whiskey
Right.
in the bottle.
Right.
So often in a, let's say a 16-year-old whiskey, you could have 50% to 70% 16-year-old whiskey barrels, right? We're doing both. But the remaining percentages could be much older whiskey. But as the whiskey gets higher demand, there's less stock.
Right.
My guess is they're lowering the highest age of the barrels that are going into this 16
So the youngest
blend.
is still 16,
Right.
but the oldest is younger.
I do not have any information to confirm that. That's just my guess.
Okay.
Right? Because this has a barrel spice, that's what, to me,
Yeah.
that this one doesn't have.
Okay.
Now,
The color is pretty much...
remember their job...
That's your finger in the way. No,
yeah, that's my
color's the
finger.
same.
Color's the same.
Color's the
Remember, the job of the blender is to make there be almost no distinction between these two. The question is, can we tell the difference?
I'll be the judge of that.
Because psychosomatic, I feel like I can.
All right.
But
You want me to test you?
let me try both. And then see if I can recognize them again.
Even this one's like really...
They're both.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Is this one as good as this one? I don't feel like it is.
Right.
But is this one good? Hell yeah.
Even on the nose, it's like, oh, damn.
But even so you got, oh man, they smell almost identical. I don't know that I could distinguish them in the smell. It's super
Let me
fruity
try.
and floral and all these honeysuckle and dense candied fruit notes. A little bit of butterscotch, but it's oily. It smells
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah, like it'll stay with you. Which one was this?
That's the original.
All right, let's keep that here.
Okay, we'll try it.
Yeah.
This one in the nose feels more butterscotchy now. Yeah.
Damn.
So the second one in the nose, after I just took a sip, is slightly more butterscotch heavy. That's magnificent whiskey.
Yeah. It's so good. it saturates just immediately. Everything, there's no like slow ramp up or kind of a drifting away and dissolving. It's just wow, full, rounded off, robust, rich, intense volume of all of these beautiful flavors.
Man, these are good. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I figured out the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So
You are, that is just
it's more subtle.
Subtle but not lighter.
Right, no, not lighter. So imagine this.
Nuanced.
Imagine if all of the ingredients of the taste
Right.
were on a line. So this is something that I taught in the class. I teach in the class that I always forget to mention in the class or outside of the class, which is when I'm trying to recreate a blend.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm trying to understand a whiskey, I spread it all around and I do the palate soaking and all that kind of stuff just to come up with every single note I can find in that whiskey. Mm-hmm. But when I'm trying to recreate a whiskey, part of the recreation of a whiskey is the journey it takes in your palate, as opposed to just all the flavor notes it hits.
Yeah.
Right? And this is should be as obvious as say a band has 2 guitars, bass, and drums. Does it always sound like every band that has 2 guitars, bass, and drums? No, right? So say this has all these different flavor notes, and so does this one. That does not mean that they taste the same, right? So to recreate this, first you have to get to the point where you have all the same flavor notes, like you didn't add a keyboard player,
Right.
right? It's like, yes, these are still a 2 guitar, bass, drum, rock band, right? But the next question is, what's the journey? Now this one to me, and to get that, I don't spread it around. To get the journey of a whiskey, try this. I want you to try it with both of them and see this is where you find the difference. Mm-hmm. Not in new flavors.
Try this one?
It's in the journey. Start with the first one. What you're going to do is sip it without spreading it around and just swallow it immediately. And you should see what happens when it impacts the tongue, what happens as it spreads, the flavor that shows up as you swallow, and the aftertaste. Those 4 parts, right? And you should see that journey of this one of sweet, then honey, and butterscotch, then the floral, then the pepper, and then aftertaste is the oily aftertaste of the oils and sweets and tannins of the barrel.
Right.
This one, the spiky little pepper notes shows up second instead of third. Mm-hmm. It shows up much sooner in the flavor profile, and it goes away faster.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So that's the only difference, as far as I can tell, between these two, is the same flavors. Mm-hmm. It's just the order in which they present themselves. This one is a little more patient.
So my approach is much more simplistic.
Do you like it?
No. Well, simplistic level 2. It's what is the outlier note between the two? Mm-hmm. And I find on the original Longmorn 16 a bit more floral, and on the Longmorn 16 here a bit more butterscotch. Mm-hmm. For me.
Oh, I definitely agree. It's even in the nose.
So yeah, and I would say if you were putting these back to back blind taste test, I would be looking for which is more floral, which is more butterscotch, and then that would be my choice.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
They both have butterscotch and they both have floral. Mm-hmm. But again, it's which instrument did you turn up?
I think they got about 85%, maybe 90%.
It might even be 90.
Yeah, 85 to 90% of the way towards the
Now, my feeling overall
yeah.
is not one of disappointment. My feeling overall is that even 90% of Longmorn 16 is a gift to the world, right? And that if that's what they needed to do in order to get it to more people,
sure,
I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's a little disappointing, but I'm totally okay with that decision process.
You will survive.
Yes, because even this at 90%, right? 90% of Bono is still better than most lead singers in an Irish rock band. And a lot of people are going to have problems with that one. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you get something and you truly love it. And actually, this is a business owner conundrum. Mm-hmm. Roy has said this. He said at one point he was struggling with growing the business, and because he had all these clients and there was only one of him.
Right.
And he went, "What do you do? Because no one else can do what I do," said the business owner. Right? Which is said by every business owner. Right. No one else can do this thing that I do. And often they're right.
They're often right.
Right.
And they often, and it's an important thing that they do. Mm-hmm. It's a vital thing that they do. Mm-hmm. But their ability to be replaced, I think they inflate that predicament, because if they can achieve 80 to 90% of good as what they're doing, then you're fine.
Well, he said he went to a consultant. The consultant listened to him talk about how he was irreplaceable for a little while, right? And then at the end, the consultant said, okay, let's agree that you're irreplaceable.
Right.
Let's just assume no one could possibly do what you do.
Right.
It's absolutely going to be a step down the moment anyone else enters the picture.
Right.
If somebody could do for these businesses 70% of what you do, would it benefit the business?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the answer was, yeah, absolutely. So 70% of you still okay.
Right.
It's like, okay, so can you train people up to 70% as good as you? Yeah, absolutely. Is that good enough for most? Absolutely. Is it better than not having you at all? Yeah, definitely. So I feel that way about Longmorn. Is 80 to 90% Longmorn better than someone not having tried Longmorn?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That's damn good whiskey.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right. I'm going to take the original.
I noticed.
Here's to fighting, stealing, and drinking.
If you fight me, you fight for a friend.
If you steal, may you steal a lover's heart.
If you drink,
may you drink with us.
Hey everybody, it's the end of the episode. You should like us.